excited to be here. It's a fun environment to be in a different place, but I notice we're having a lot of the same conversations that we've had in years past with a slightly new spin. So I'm curious, how many of you have been asked to create content about AI? Okay, how about SEO? Okay, how about lead generation? Right, so if we're all creating content about the same stuff, how are we supposed to stand out? This is one of the things that I think so many of us run into throughout the lifetime of our career, and even more so now that we're competing with robots who want to write about all these same things too at a faster pace, right? We're in this sea of content sameness where we're creating the same thing as everybody else around us, and it becomes increasingly difficult for us to stand out. But I know that you all don't want to be in this sea of content sameness, right? We're not trying to be here. In fact, you probably don't even want to be one of these tiny little 6-inch guppies because our ideas are bigger than that. You don't have guppy ideas. You want big, big impact, right? You have big ideas. I'm talking not just shark big, not just orca big. I'm talking sperm whale big. Why? Because that right there is 100,000 pounds of pure power. It is the largest toothed whale in the ocean, and they're up to 60 feet long. Did you need to know that? Absolutely not, but now you do. Now you do. And the reason why this is so interesting is that these are some of the biggest creatures in the ocean, right? And I want us to think about ourselves in that way too. We have some of the big ideas in our space, but often we're delivering them in a tiny little package, and they're getting lost in this sea of content sameness. So I want you to remember that you're kind of a big deal. I have to switch it though, because so their brain is behind the eyes. You didn't need to know that either, but now you do. The brain is behind the eyes, right? I want it to be so big that you didn't even notice that tiny little guppy is still there in the corner to scale. Yes, to scale. I measured the pixels. That's the difference in size we're talking about here with the ideas that you're going to be bringing to life. So why am I talking about Moby Dick? You're like, this is content marketing world. Like, this is not supposed to be about sea life. But first of all, no one told me I couldn't. And second of all, this talk is at least partially inspired by Moby Dick, the book. So one of the things that I do oftentimes when I'm feeling a little stuck for ideas, I'm feeling a little stagnant. We've all had this feeling before, right? Like things just start to feel the same. I like to wander around a bookstore. That is my go-to for finding new inspiration, because there's just this serendipity that happens when you're kind of meandering around the store into sections you wouldn't normally go into. You come across authors you've never seen before, people with biographies that you didn't know they were important. And a lot of times I find myself taking pictures of the displays and of the books. And most recently I was doing this in my hometown of Raleigh, and I came across a book on the floor. And it was the SparkNotes for Moby Dick. Now, one of the things that's interesting, I mean, we know SparkNotes, right? Helped a lot of us get through some classes for sure. What I noticed about this book that was interesting is that there's no author on it, right? We see Herman Melville, he wrote Moby Dick, of course, but we don't know who wrote this piece of content, who created this SparkNotes, this summary, this helpful guide. And that's true for all the sea of same books behind it. You see that whole shelf of SparkNotes there. And part of the reason for this is that this is commodity content. This is content that could be created by anybody and is purely information. And it can be created by anybody, and it is created by everybody. So when I went to go look and see, well, who's creating more content like this, right? Much like many of us, tasked with creating content about the same things, there's a million different versions of this. And seriously, like with AI, there's like a million different options for summaries of Moby Dick, because that information is available to everyone, everywhere. And you're sitting there thinking, this still has nothing to do with marketing, but it does. It does, because this blog post is the same. Right? We think we're super special. Inbound marketing, what is it? Inbound marketing strategies, delighting strategies, using the, right? We're creating this kind of content about the topics that our leadership is asking us to create, and we wind up in a sea of a million different content pieces of the same type. And the reason for that is not because we're not good at our jobs. Y'all are fantastic at your jobs. It's because we're sitting here trying to create content that is informative, that is accurate, that is helpful. But that is not enough anymore. Because all of those summaries of Moby Dick are accurate and informative and helpful. Maybe I shouldn't say accurate. I didn't actually read all of them because they're horrible, but, but I presume accurate. And I know that your content you create is accurate. But that's just not enough for us to stand out. It's not enough. So if we are here, if we find ourselves wanting to create content that truly stands out, that has a bigger impact, even when we are forced to talk about the same topics as many of our competition, the questions we need to be asking ourselves are this: what makes our content valuable? What makes it valuable? Anyone have an answer? There's no wrong answer here. What makes your content valuable to your audience? Memorable, okay, that's good. Honest, okay, honest is super important. I'm a former journalist, so I'm like, it's gotta be straight up, straight and narrow, love it. What else? Authentic, yes, I like that. It meets a need, excellent, I love that, meets a need, right? So we're answering the needs, yes. Emotive, ooh, I like that, emotive. So we're bringing in the feelings into it, and we're gonna get to that in a little bit, yeah. An experience, ooh, I like that. Other thoughts on what makes your content valuable? Entertaining, I'm glad someone said that, because up till now it was all just boring, right? Yeah, entertaining is another good one. So what makes it valuable? That's the number one question. We're going to talk more about this, but that's the first question we need to be asking ourselves. What makes it valuable? And the second one is, who could create it? Because if the answer is anyone, we're in trouble. And if the answer is a bot, we're in bigger trouble. So these are the questions we're going to be talking about today, and how we can use these two questions of what makes it valuable and who could create it to ensure that the content we create is not in that sea of content sameness, that it's not a commodity that anyone could create. Because what we find is that consistently, if we focus on content where the value is just the information, like the Moby Dick summary or the definition of inbound marketing, and it could be created by anyone, you're not going to stand out. This is not where big ideas happen. This is not where big impact happens. So these are the two questions we're going to allow to guide us today so we can stay away from this sea of commodity content.